Welcome to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. Legal issues simplified through real client stories and real-world experiences. Creating simplicity in 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to another episode of Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto, with my co-host, Michael Byrd.
As a business and healthcare law firm, we represent clients in multiple sectors and multiple specialties, especially healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
This season, we are searching for common ground for our diverse audience, and we'll be bringing in many guests to help us. This season's theme is the universal language, business.
Yes, and I'm excited today because today we have a second-time guest joining us. He has been a huge influence on both of us, our firm. He's all-around great guys, and audience members, believe it or not, if you love this show, he's the person who planted the idea in our head that we need to start our own podcast. And those who love this show, you can thank Tim for that. Those who don't like it, you can blame Tim for that, or Michael.
And I say, when you say planting it in your head, it's a little stronger than that, a little stronger than inspiration. It's you guys need to do a podcast.
Yes, that's true.
And then spend 20 minutes
explaining
making
to us why.
Realize exactly that we do need to do a podcast.
Right.
Well, before we introduce Tim, Brad, I've been wanting to talk to you about a segment I heard on our favorite radio station.
The ticket.
Yes, of course. They had a discussion during the Winter Olympics.
Well, okay. First off, as we've talked about before, I love the ticket. But, Michael, I think you're a little late to the game. It's the middle of May here, and the Winter Olympics was a while ago. I'm assuming you're talking about the Winter Olympics of 2022. But I'm not alone to understand why you're asking this question. I mean, if I remember correctly, when I was reading the statistics, the Beijing Winter Games drew like the lowest rating in the history of the Olympics since NBC's been broadcasting it for over 20 years. So why are we talking about the Olympics?
It's a fair point. I'll have to say I was pretty disconnected. In fact, the most connected I was to this segment that I heard when they were talking about the ticket. Yeah, it was just weird. I think it must have been the time difference. I don't know, but here's what they were talking about.
Okay.
They started doing a hypothetical, which is not shocking.
Yes,
they do that all the time.
Sure.
And they were saying they were just starting to talk about how difficult the Winter Olympic sports are. And the hypothetical is if you had to compete in an event and just complete it, all you had to do is finish. Which one do you believe you could finish?
Is this finishing alive? Because if that's a criteria, I'm out in the ski jump completely. But it's been a while. Let's help me and the audience remember what were some of the events.
And I had to go back to our assistant Siri to even remember too, since it's been a bit. So.
All right.
The first one is alpine skiing.
Sure, I can do that. I can do greens and blues.
Well, I don't think that's what it is.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot of different things.
Okay.
With a lot of speed and a lot of turns.
Yeah, I'm out.
Yeah. There's the biathlon, which I've heard is actually I've heard it said that's the hardest of all the events. So that's, it combines the cross country skiing, which is hard enough, but then at some point you got to get out a gun and shoot targets.
Yeah, that's like doing the Nordtrack and then getting off and shooting. So I probably could do that poorly.
Yeah, so you wouldn't survive in the wild.
Right.
Okay, got it. Bobsled.
If it's like the Jamaican bobsled where I can end up on my head and it's still alive, maybe.
Well, we just kind of talked about it. What if we took the guns out and it was just cross country skiing?
Yeah, I might survive that.
I don't know about that, Brad. Curling.
I like to drink. Is that what we're talking about? Like curling a beer?
Kind of.
Okay.
Yeah. It does look like a drinking sport.
Okay, it does.
Figure skating?
Nope.
Freestyle skiing?
If you're referring to freestyle skiing where you're skiing and then you have a garage sale and all your stuff goes everywhere, then sure.
Okay, dad joke. All right, let's move on. Ice hockey?
Is it similar to football? So, yeah, sure.
You got to know how to skate, right?
Oh, okay.
Luge? Nordic combined? I don't even know what that one is. I'm not sure. Short track skating?
Well, that sounds like my style. I don't think very, very, very far, right?
Yeah, it's really fast. Well, how about the skeleton?
That's Halloween.
Ski jumping, snowboard,
No.
speed skating.
Yeah, speed skating, no way.
Okay, well, that's all I can
so
remember.
top three that you could finish, Michael.
Well, curling, obviously. I mean, that's a slow-moving sport. It looks like a drinking game. I feel like I not only could finish it, but I might even win.
I love that. Despite having never played the sport, in your competitive fire is kicking off that you would be better than anyone else.
Just confidence.
Yes.
I've had lots of practice at bar games over the years, particularly my formative professional years, my college years, in my 20s.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, I also think I could complete most of the alpine skiing events, though I would not be going fast.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess my last one would be speed skating, although I would be missing the speed part of it.
Mm.
I think I could just kind of walk around the track and complete it. Which one's the scariest to you?
Probably figure skating, because I don't think I could fit in any of those outfits. How about you?
Well, first of all, let me and the audience agree that would be scary for all of us if you had on a figure skating outfit and you were competing in that. For me personally, I don't know how to pick between ski jumping and snowboarding.
Yeah.
I'm terrified. I don't even know how to survive, obviously. I don't know how to complete them. And I wouldn't even know how to start. Like, what do you do the first time you try any of those events? It seems like that would be just the first practice would lead to death.
I have no idea. Well, actually, Michael, that was a lot more interesting than I thought it would be. But let's move forward and bring on today's guest. And I don't know if you thought of this because our today's guest lives up in the north, and that's why you thought of thinking about him or something like that. But we have had Tim Sawyer on here before. A lot has happened since our last podcast. I can't wait to hear what he has to share today. So, Michael, let's bring on Tim.
Yeah, and I have absolutely zero connection between Tim Sawyer and the Winter Olympics, but we'll dig.
We'll dig.
Okay.
We'll dig. All right.
So Tim's, as you said, he's been on before. He actually sold his business, Crystal Clear Digital Marketing, not long after he was on with us the last time.
Yes.
Tim is the host of the podcast, True to Form. He is the inspiration for the Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. We've been a guest of his a few times. Tim was a founder and president of Crystal Clear Software Marketing and Consulting Company. Crystal Clear was also not Tim's first rodeo. He is definitely an entrepreneur. He is a 2-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur. He is a highly regarded speaker, and if you've never seen Tim speak, you're missing out.
Yes.
He is powerful. We'll use those words. And now he is spending his time post-sale working on teaching and giving back with teaching financial literacy. Tim, welcome to the show.
Great to be here, guys. And I have 3 words for you. Blades of glory. That's all I don't know if you guys have seen that movie.
Yes.
The whole time, just picturing you 2 guys floating around the ice in your outfits.
That's it's an ugly sight, but yes,
Thanks for having me, guys. Great to be here.
Yeah, dude, we're so pumped to have you again.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. Well, let's get started. I know you've been on before, but just for a reset for everyone and to kind of build on what we're talking about today, tell us a little bit kind of about your professional story.
Thank you. So my first job right out of college, I went to work for a federal savings bank. Essentially, it was a subprime lender cloaked as a federal savings bank, a conservative subprime lender. In 1991, privately held, and actually started as a telemarketer, as all the salespeople did. And from telemarketer to what we call loan officers. So loan officers' primary function is qualifying borrowers and then selling money over the phone. So we did home equity loans, we did refinances. And because of the nature of their business model and subprime in general, there's a lot of nuance in the sales process because the borrower has certain expectations about the rate and fee structure. And, with not every borrower is aware that with increased risk means increased fees and increased, And so there was a lot to the sales culture working as a loan officer at the bank. I did that for 12 years. I started as a loan officer, became an origination manager, managing a team, and then ultimately became the person managing the people, got involved in, it was a really cool place, man. And I got so excited about sales, and that's where I developed my passion for training. Ultimately, I became the corporate recruiter and wrote a manual, became a sales trainer. And I was literally the only person in the bank. We had 42 loan officers that I had a radio pack on my belt with a headset. And at any point in time, if a call was going wrong, whether it was the mortgage closing or something, I could just tap into their extension and take over the call. Wow. That's how dialed in we were around. So we had a joke because my extension was 442, and they'd be like, 442. And then I'd get up, plug into the phone, and we're all like a pit, And so I learned a ton from that. From there, it didn't end well. The father who owned the business had 4 sons. The son graduated from Yale, came into the business at 23 years or 24 years old, whatever it was, as president. He never sold anything in his life, and his father had very different views. Me and the kid couldn't get along, and so I actually left with a pretty bad taste in my mouth. And so took a year off and spent 35 days in an RV traveling with my family, and came to the conclusion, at least that I would try, not to ever have somebody else sign my paycheck. That was after 12 years. And a couple of years before that, I had met Adam, who you guys know, and he was in the process of getting ready to sell BZ. BZ was a digital marketing CRM solution for car dealerships. So we became friendly towards the tail end of that. And he said, hey, let's do something together. So we started Galactically Stupid. We started a digital marketing and CRM company for banks, credit unions, and mortgage companies going into the teeth of the 2008 financial collapse.
Oh, wow.
And
ouch.
We had lots of great contracts, and we couldn't collect on any of them.
Yeah.
So I had met a guy, so one of the credit union people that we worked with had a friend who owned an independent insurance agency. And the guy approached me and said, hey, can you do for me what you're doing for them? And so I just asked a bunch of questions around sales and marketing and pricing and profitability. And it turns out the local independent agency channel was a great spot to hang our hat, because it had not been what I'll call revolutionized yet, meaning they hadn't fully embraced the internet. You had companies like Geico that every time they deregulated a state, Geico would go in and wipe everybody out with their ads and their online marketing. And so we went into the independent agency channel, and then of course blew that up. And we sold that to a private equity firm in 2011. Did great. However, we outthought ourselves at the exit. We sold 48%. And part of the allure or the attraction of that deal was they let us take 60% of the money out up front on the first 50%, which was a nice number and unusual for principal or founders to get paid before the private equity firm does. So they came in and did like what most people do in those situations, totally screwed it up. So we got money up front, didn't do so great on the back. And then after that, we went into elective medicine. And it was the most fun, most challenging, most crazy ride ever. So we went into elective medicine in December 2013. Started signing customers in December 2014. And the first call, January 2014, and the first call I made, outbound call off of LinkedIn, was the American Medical Spa Association.
And our audience members who haven't caught on, that's our partner in Chicago, Alex Tiersch, is the founder of that.
Yep. And back then, you guys were, was super new. So Alex was just getting his feet wet as a public speaker. So I would literally MC the event. I showed up, said on behalf of AmSpa and Alex, welcome. I'm going to be your host today. And it was great to see AmSpa go from what it was at that time to what it is today. And I give all the credit in the world to Alex, to Renee, to your team. And that organization is making a serious positive impact on the industry, and it was great to see that grow. And then, of course, we were approached during COVID by two private equity groups. We weren't for sale per se. One owned by Jerry Jones, who owns Blue Star Innovation Partners, which is housed in Cowboy Stadium, and then Private Equity Group. So they made an offer that made sense for us, and we sold it. I still hold the title of Chief Evangelist, so I'm a storyteller for the business, not Chief Executive Officer. And it's been a great experience. It's been a great experience.
And a quick, going back to all these companies, were they all digital marketing platforms? Well, mostly I'm talking the insurance, the platform, and then also obviously going into Crystal Clear. Was it the same kind of underlying business platform that you had that you were taking to different industries?
It wasn't the same. It was exactly the same.
That's amazing.
And that goes, by the way, that starts with cars, to mortgages, to insurance, to breast augmentation. Same universal principles applied to all of them.
Yeah, that's so cool. And I think that goes in some of the commonalities that you experience just in general. So you have all this background and knowledge. But what were some of these prior companies, and then now Crystal Clear, and now where you are? What did you see in your experience? What was a common theme that you saw that arrived?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And we had a theme, and actually the theme came with Adam from the car space, the dealership space, which was every business essentially needs to do three things, right? You guys have heard me say this ad nauseum. They need to find, meaning increase the quantity and quality of traffic to their website and phones. They need to convert, sell, treat, whatever verb you want to use for that, right? And then they need to retain them. And so once you understand the retail nature of every business, meaning somebody has to sell something to somebody at some point, right? Then you can apply universal principles. And those universal principles include people, having the right people, processes, right? Putting people in the best position you can to help them succeed. And then tools, making sure they have the right combination of technology and workspace. And so it's find, sell, keep, people, process, tools. And then everything else, leadership and culture, will flow from that. And if we had ever tried to get away from that, I think we would have struggled, because this is about business. You said the universal language of business. So if in business, if in fact the goal or the role of the entrepreneur is to sell their business, right, to get a nice exit.
Right.
So if you look at Adam's application of these universal tools, and then subsequently my involvement, BZ, so you're talking about a kid who graduated from high school, started his own company really young. BZ sold to ADP at an enterprise value of $133 million, right? You could back out some debt and argue over who got what, but that was the enterprise value. Astonished Results, which is our second business, was 54. Crystal Clear was 37.5. The likelihood, the probability, and this isn't to pat myself or Adam on the back, but the likelihood of doing 1/10 of one of those is super low.
Yeah.
But then you string, so you do 133, 50, that's 180, 30, 210, 220. So to create $220 million in real equity valuation tells you that those universal principles, as Joe Biden would say, we weren't particularly poor at applying those principles to different industries.
That's so awesome. I mean, it's and I think the power behind the principles, which resonate in of themselves, is just taking these crazy, insurance and, elective medicine. There's seemingly
car insurance,
yes,
mortgage. That's what was fascinating as you were walking us through your opening story. But those same principles, and hopefully the audience members were taking down notes. you apply those across in any profession, they're important, because if you have all these customers coming in and you don't know how to actually take care of them, you're not going to retain them. And if you don't have the processes in place, how can you have the right people to help work with them? So I think it's such an important principle in business, no matter where you fall.
You had mentioned earlier, Tim, and it was almost a side comment. You said one of the mistakes you made was selling or keeping a controlling interest in your first sale. But I would wonder whether it's that or something else, some of the lessons you've learned across these different company journeys.
Yeah, I call it tuition. I have certainly learned and paid for more than my fair share of tuition, for sure. I think, again, if you apply those universal principles, find, sell, keep, and then people, process, tools, that a couple things. One is that the company needs to have strong leadership. I don't care if you have 4 people in it, 2 people in it, 10 million people in it, right? You need to have the right person leading the group, right? And that could be a combination of people leading the group, but that's really important. And as part of that, those people need to be really good at defining where are we trying to go, right? So and then once we know where are we trying to go, how we're going to get there, share with all your constituents, right? So that means share with, first of all, most important people are your employees. Start with them. Make sure they know exactly where you're going, right? And be super sober-minded about how you communicate that. And then share like crazy with your customers, and then share with the industry at large. And it's super important to keep everybody on message all the time, right? There's a saying that we applied, that everything speaks, from the way we dress. You guys remember we all wore Robert Graham shirts, and we all had Rolex watches, and we all wore jeans, and we all said the same things and responded to objections in the same way. So I think, and that all starts from leadership being over communicating. This is where we're going. This is how we're going to get there. And I think that's one lesson that, and at times probably I undervalued that. And when we did, we paid for it, right? It's if you kind of leave people to their own devices, you're going to get what you get. I think that's really important. And it's hard, right? Being corrective with people and offering constructive criticism. None of that stuff's comfortable.
Yeah.
But it's necessary.
And I completely agree with that statement, is that if your employees, if the top brass knows who you are as an organization, and you don't share that with your employees and where you're trying to go, you're never going to get there. And so that's a statement of share, or over communicate really resonates with those who we've spoken with who are very successful, because you can't get there without, unless you're, there's very few people in the world who've been able to pull anything off by themselves. Well, okay, Tim, we've kind of walked through your journey, and obviously there's a lot of fun things that's happened for your journey, but if you can, summarize maybe one of the proudest business strategies or accomplishments that you've had, and it could be with any of these industries or anything you've done since then.
Simple. COVID. Our response to COVID, and to put it in perspective, so in March of 2020, we're in the elective medical business. All of our customers at that time were on a subscription model, which means they pay for bundled services monthly. Mm-hmm. So in the span of a month, almost every one of our customers was closed, right? So imagine all your customers are forced out of business. And then all the number one way we attracted new customers, as you know, was through shows. We did 70 shows a year.
Yeah.
So simultaneously, all of our customers were essentially closed, and we were cut off from new customers. And that is a very scary place for a business.
Yeah.
And what, from leadership's perspective, Adam and Crystal were able to do in terms of workforce management, the way they handled PPP money, the way marketing dealt with literally taking our entire business model virtually, going from 6 shows a month to 0, and then still having to maintain the same acquisition rate was, Audrey's role in that was unbelievable. The sales guys' roles in that were unbelievable. They had to totally change the way they sold. And then, to Adam, being able to land the plane with a nice private equity deal in the teeth of COVID is nothing short of, everybody had to do exactly what they had to do, or we were going to be in trouble. We were in trouble.
And I think, one thing we've learned from a lot of different guests is, with any organization, you have certain principles and as you said, processes in place, but being able to pivot when necessary, but then still keeping your focus as to who you are. And I think COVID, with a lot of different organizations we spoke with, that was a huge piece. And obviously you had the right people, you had the right processes, and you just had to pivot as to how to still get new customers while your customers were closed, which again, as you were talking about, I started shaking a little bit thinking about what we were going through in that same time frame.
Crazy.
Yeah.
But it also, I think having, to the point of going back to car dealerships and then mortgage and insurance and ultimately elective medicine, I think collectively Adam and I's mindset has always been an adaptive mindset inherently, right? When you look at it and say, okay, we went into, I'd never had a elective medical procedure in my life. I'd never been in a med spa. I didn't know what a plastic surgeon was. We went to a convention and said, oh, this looks good. And we went into elective medicine. And the mindset was always, let's learn as fast as we can, right? And so when COVID hit, I think the company, we had an adaptive nature already, right? Because we had dealt with the financial crisis while we were in the mortgage industry. It's not, these weren't like born out of extreme intelligence. It was like, we have 5 minutes.
Yeah.
What are we going to do? Yeah.
Well,
and everybody,
and I'm saying,
hold my drink.
I think a lot of entrepreneurs who had gone through the 2008, because we've had this conversation with others, they knew you had to pivot, while larger organizations who are like, parking a battleship, they didn't know how to make those fast moves. And that's, I'm lucky enough that I have a guy across the table from me that we can bounce this stuff off each other, just like you and Adam do. And I always wonder about those entrepreneurs who they have no one else to pick up the phone and say, how should we handle this? And so, it's always a blessing. Even though I got to share the limelight with this guy, it's still good to have him around.
Yeah. And those that are on YouTube knows that someone looks nicer today than the other. And we'll just
I think with Adam, I never shared the limelight. I was more in the limelight.
Yeah. Well,
but we had a lot of fun, and he's off to the races now. And next iteration of Find, Sell, Keep, and he'll be amazing at that.
Yeah.
He just keeps going.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I can't believe it. We've already run out of time.
I know.
It's amazing, as
so
always.
Much fun.
So I guess what we'll do next now, Tim, is say goodbye. And then on the other side, we'll do a little quick legal wrap-up.
Sure. Thanks again, Tim. It's always awesome to have you with us.
You guys are amazing. Great job with the podcast, and good luck this year.
Thank you.
Many business owners use legal counsel as a last resort rather than as a proactive tool that can further their success. Why? For most, it's the fear of unknown legal costs. ByrdAdatto's Access Plus program makes it possible for you to get the ongoing legal assistance you need for one predictable monthly fee. That gives you unlimited phone and email access to the legal team, so you can receive feedback on legal concerns as they arise. Access Plus, a smarter, simpler way to access legal services. Find out more. Visit ByrdAdatto.com today.
Welcome back to Legal 123s with ByrdAdatto. I'm your host, ByrdAdatto. I'm still here with Michael Byrd, the co-host. And Michael, this season we are searching for common ground. I'm so happy that Tim Sawyer could join us for the universal language business. I mean, oh my gosh, we could spend hours with Tim. Hopefully our audience would still listen. But, one of the things that near the end of this episode, we really started getting into is the, being able to pivot and being able to have someone there with you to talk through that process. And we were talking about how hard it is for those entrepreneurs, for those solos, the guys at the top. And one of the things that, we always talk with our clients about is surrounding yourself with great counsel. And that doesn't always have to be your attorneys or your CPAs or your financial advisor. Someone needs to be on that advisory team with you so that you have that opportunity to find that resource, to work with that person, and not just be focused on one element of it.
Yeah, it's lonely at the top, as they say.
Yeah.
And, it's so often that we represent small businesses that our contact is the founder and CEO type person, and they'll come in for a whiteboard meeting and say, I want to do X.
Right.
I want to hire this person. I want to make a change to the corporate structure. And it's just amazing how powerful it is when you start exploring the strategy behind what they're saying.
The why, yeah.
The why, how often they come at it and they haven't had that. They haven't had someone kind of prod and challenge and ask questions, and how cool the outcome ends up being a lot of times, because you kind of start a whiteboard session thinking that it's going to be almost transactional, like I need to get A, B, C information so I can go draft this legal document.
Right.
And it ends up being dynamic, and there's sometimes a minor shift that transforms the business happens like before your eyes.
Yeah.
Or, sometimes there's a shift in the direction you go and you're working on a different legal project or whatever. But it's just listening to Tim and seeing the power of the team of he and Adam.
Yes.
Being able to pivot, as we say, throughout these different industries. That's what popped to mind, and how it applies to us in our life at ByrdAdatto.
Totally agree. Well, Michael, can't believe the show went as fast as it did, because it flew by for me. But audience members, don't worry. Next Wednesday, we'll be bringing on a new guest. Clint Bundy will be joining us from Charlotte, North Carolina. Clint is the managing director of the Bundy Group, and he'll be discussing investment banking in the medical market. Thanks again for joining us today. And remember, if you like this episode, please subscribe. Make sure to give us a 5-star rating and share with your friends.
You can also sign up for the ByrdAdatto newsletter by going to our website at ByrdAdatto.com.
ByrdAdatto is providing this podcast as a public service. This podcast is for educational purposes only. This podcast does not constitute legal advice, nor does it establish an attorney-client relationship. Reference to any specific product or entity does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by ByrdAdatto. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. Please consult with an attorney on your legal issues.